porque yo sé que voy a ganar. Yo sé que voy a ganar, a la acción mía voy a pichar. Y yo no voy por parar. Yo no juego con bandoleros, porque yo sé que voy a ganar. Yo sé que voy a ganar.
Hey,
Hey, going on,
it's
man?
a sweet day,
Hey. Yeah, doggy.
baby.
Going on,
What's
man?
going on? Not much, man. Not much, man. It's been a weekend. It's been a week. It's been a month.
No, I know. I feel you. I haven't talked
Yeah.
to you nonstop, pretty much, man.
Yeah,
So,
man.
it's going to be a
Lot-
very interesting recording today, and I'm down with it. I'm down with it because I trust you. Let's do it.
Yeah, I like that. I like that when it's trust. When it's trust, it works.
It has to be. It's in our contract.
Oh, 100%, 100%. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of children of all ages, you are tuning into the boys, the Fuego Boys here, the Rated F.
I like it.
And you like that, is adding a little twist to it. And if you haven't already done so, I don't know why. I don't know why. I don't know what we got to do. What elbows I gotta throw at you. But you need to like and subscribe to this channel.
I think because they're living under rocks, or it's because we're still under the rock, but one day we'll turn that rock into gravel, and everybody gonna know the name.
Oh, if you smell.
To take a page out of Mr. LA Knight's book, and everybody say it. Rated
F. So
Yeah.
yes, guys, yeah. Like and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already done so. And remember, you guys, our social media, you guys can reach out to us. Fastest is on Twitter or Rated F. Sorry, Rated F2, and then our Instagram, the Rated _F, where you guys can sit there and talk with us, message us, see the videos we post. Sometimes we drop some new stuff. So again, just kind of give us a little information, show some love. Also, guys, don't forget, for our audio listeners, we are listening right. We're dropping everything on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, and Amazon Music. So please make sure, if you are listening to those and you love the soothing, sexy voices of your boys, of the Fuego Boys here, go ahead and give us some love. Rate us with 5 stars.
Yes.
And make sure you let us know. If it's not 5, obviously we understand. I would hate you forever, but I mean, hopefully it's 5.
The criticism makes us better, man.
Yeah, you're right, though. You're right. Critics does help out. But I want to jump in straight into the straight for it. I'm gonna go for it. We had an Instagram question that was posted, and with that question, we had it says, "How do you handle grief?" or "How have you helped others with someone's grief?" So I'm gonna go ahead and give just some of the questions, some of the answers that we had gotten, and I enjoyed some of the questions that came in. So someone posted, they've called in and allowed the other person just to speak their mind, sometimes, just to let them talk, which I think that's that's good, because on some aspects, sometimes you don't know what to tell someone, and hearing them out is really, like, sometimes all they need. So just let it out of their system. Another one was be as present with the person or self, feel the feelings and emotions as they come. I think that was a twofer on that one, because it sounded like they not only are you just being present for the other person, but sometimes even for yourself, if you have to, when you're going through those feelings, when you're going through those emotions, being aware, being present with what you're feeling and just allowing it to kind of go through it's not easy, because dealing with the many deaths I've had to deal with so far, I immediately kind of trying to process it comes late for me, because I go into protector mode, and I want to be there and help the family out, and be jump in and do whatever I need to do, and call the people I need to call, and handle everything.
You're a natural born manager, so when you see that the team is in a crisis, you want to make sure that the team is managed. It's like when God rest his soul, when Pop passed, it was, I'm the man of the house. I gotta be the man of the house. There's no time for grief. There's no time for solace. There's no time for weakness. I gotta go. I gotta go. And it's, there's always time to process your emotions, and it probably helps even more because you can understand the situation better and then better handle it.
Yeah.
I've always told my wife when I have a tough situation, I try to omit as much emotion from it as best as possible and go into a linear aspect of this is the logical way for me to handle this problem, and that's it. Afterwards, once it's handled and I have a game plan that's lucrative and it's going to work, then I say I can process my emotions.
Yeah.
Cry.
And that makes sense. I think everybody grieves very differently.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes when you start thinking about like what that grief looks like, it's a tricky road because everyone has an opinion. It's like an asshole. Everyone has an opinion. But the issue with that is that everybody sometimes doesn't understand that your methods, your opinion on how to handle grief sometimes doesn't work for everybody. So I think there's a fine line with, I'm here to listen and I'm here to give you advice. And I think too many people say, oh, I'm here for you, want to give advice. So I think that's another tricky part I've noticed is that while some people are grieving, the others who are trying to help aren't reading the room and aren't seeing that area is like, we're not looking for you to tell me how to feel and how to handle this grief and what I need to do. And you're the man of the house. And sometimes you don't need to hear that. Yeah. You already know that at that point, there's certain things I need to hear. Like, hey, you gotta, sometimes just let it out, let it cry. Or sometimes, just, talk to me. What is it? What are you feeling? And let me just spew it out. Sometimes and there are a lot of people, because I'm guilty of this sometimes too, is that you sit there trying to talk and, you're asking the question and I'll be like, no, I'm fine, man. I'm good. And you're like, no, you sure, man? And you're like, yeah, I'm good. And then I go, well, like, it takes a second. Yeah,
it's okay. Like for anyone, it's like if you're not good, you're not good. I'm like, if I had a bad morning, somebody says good morning, I was just like, it's not. But yeah, I could see where you're going with it. This is, how are you? I'm fine. You're not. Like, it just depends on who you're comfortable talking to and unloading onto in a good way, because they're willing to take that load and just shut up and listen. Yeah.
And then that's the hard for a lot of people, especially for men. Kind of like when we talk about men's mental health and stuff, it's that hard part of being vulnerable and surrendering, which is like my new favorite word lately is to surrender.
To surrender.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? I tell Angie all the time, my favorite word is let. This is a synonym to surrender. In my book, it's a synonym to surrender. I let you do this. You let me.
Okay.
I'm like,
okay, I see where you're going with that.
Yeah, because I tell Angie all the time, nobody lets me do a fucking thing. Except for my parents, because I have the utmost respect for them. Because if they tell me to do something, how high is how high. But
true.
Anyone else, you'd be like, oh yeah, I'll let you do that. I'm like, excuse me? Like, we're going out with the
like,
boys.
you don't let me do nothing. I do what I want, kind of thing.
It's like, oh yeah, I want to go see a new Dracula movie. Okay, I'll let you go. What? No,
what?
This wasn't a question.
It was a statement.
All right, let you go with the boys. I remember when we actually talking about this last time we shot. And we were going to when I was in Universal with Monty.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I was like, oh man, yeah, I'm gonna go Diagon Alley over there. He was like, yeah, we'll get there in a minute. Let's go this way, and then I'll let you go that way in a little bit. No, going to Diagon Alley. I'm going that way.
You can do what the fuck you want.
So I'm grateful for everything that you've done, but my mind tells me to go that way, and I'm going that way now. So I'll see you too. It's so funny. It's so funny because that I think humans.
Certain words have a lot of power.
Yes.
If you allow it to.
And I said, yeah, exactly. And I say that a lot. I was like, words have the greatest and strongest meaning because the way you present something is the way that your mind processed it. But the words that you used is how you want it to either sound or how you want to absorb that.
Yeah.
So some people are looking for submission. Some people are looking for dominance. And it's the way they speak in the body language. You can speak without words. Because it's just, you could command someone or you could be commanded.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's submission, to submit.
And it's funny because Anise is the one who kind of got me with this word of surrender. Because we were on social media the other day. It should have been Instagram. I'm pretty sure it was Instagram. And she found this post that's pretty much saying, you know, surrendering to God and allow whatever is to be to be. So it's funny because I said surrender and immediately you were like, oh, you like giving up kind of thing, like, oh, you're letting me do something. And it's funny that you said that because when I heard that, I said the same thing. I was like, surrender? Like, no, you don't surrender. But then when she said, no, but you're surrendering to God, I went,
that's a totally different story. If you believe in whatever God you believe in, that's a totally different story.
Exactly. And it's funny because for whatever religion you believe in, when you surrender to God, it's not saying that you just you've given up. It's saying that you've given up on holding the reins and allow him to guide you. Right. And allow him to take the path that it's supposed to be versus you trying to force the path. Mm-hmm. And I think one thing I started noticing more and more is that, and actually it's happened more recently, is that surrendering part. It's not easy to do. It's not easy to sit there and say, hey, I am going to let go and just let it be. Yeah. I'm used to being the go-getter and putting my hands in it, and I manipulate my next venture or what this is going to look like.
It's natural to want power, to be into control. So when you say, I surrender to God, and you say, I will not worry, oh my God, we are creatures of worry. And why would you worry? Is the biggest problem. Worry is the biggest solution to problems you do not have. Yeah. Imagine that. I heard that somewhere. I can't remember exactly. It was probably a fortune cookie. But
Confucius said it.
Yeah, right. With the lotto numbers, lucky numbers.
I keep those, man. I be playing sometimes. see if it works out.
You put numbers on the back for a reason. So there you go.
Facts.
Mega Ball. But yeah, man. It's just like, why would I worry? And it's very hard to try to control that aspect of life, not worrying. And submission and surrender. And it's like, why, when you really think about it, why would I worry about a problem that I do not have? Because your worry is a hypothetical that may happen, it may not. Just let it flow. And most of the time when I say, all right, God, it's all you, I'm not even gonna think about it anymore, it usually works in your favor.
And I think I definitely have felt that this week that's happened. This like last week into the weekend is where I was kind of like, okay, like I have to just stop fighting the wave and just kind of go with it and see where this current's gonna take me. Where in life am I gonna go with if I just kind of go with it versus fighting it and seeing, if I can make a new route for this river? Is like, no, it's not gonna happen. You're going through rapids. You're in the hardest part of the water right now.
Right. Exactly. I feel you.
So I mean, and for anybody who actually has any input on it. I know we dropped an Instagram question, but whoever's listening to it, go ahead and drop it onto the comments, or go into the for our listeners. You guys can. It should be a section where we have it the way I have it set up for the audio. There should be sections where you guys can ask questions or answer questions. So go ahead and drop that out for us as well, and let us know what you guys think in regards to how people handle grief, or how you handle grief, or how you've helped someone handle grief. It's great conversation, I think.
Yes, honestly, I'm ready to see where this conversation goes, because it could be a very interesting one, and you're the more intellectual of the two of us. I tend to be the playful puppy with my my topics, so it's going to be interesting. It's going to be very intelligent conversations. But Felix is absolutely right, guys. Like, those Instagram questions for any topic that we drop for you guys, that we're recording for you guys, make sure that you're giving us our your opinions, because we cherish them. It's what makes our channel. Like, we're not just talking to talk to each other. We could do that all day. But
facts.
Recording it, like, if we were recording this just to watch ourselves talk to each other, that is the most narcissistic shit that
I mean,
two people
I think I'd be thinking I look good, so sometimes I'd be wanting to watch and see my face. Oh, look at that! Look at those faces.
I always listen to the recordings to hear my voice, because I know sometimes my brain doesn't process as fast as I would like it to, and I have to stumble over my words. So it's almost like a therapy for me. It'd be like, I listen to how I'm processing later, so I could then teach myself what to do in the future.
Hey, why not?
Yeah, so I could be better.
Sometimes it's a learning method for us.
Yes, exactly. It is. Well, go on, boy. Let's do it. What are we doing?
So I wanted to kind of segue that into our conversation with this. So I've, guys, again, if you notice, our episode for episode 53 is good grief, because going over grief, I think, is a really big topic. I'm not afraid to say it right now that I've been still dealing with it on my own end. I've recently lost my grandmother, and prior to that, I had lost my mother-in-law, and prior to that, I lost my dad. And it's, I hate to say that I've kind of been going through a ringer of emotions, because it's like I said, like, when my dad passed, I went through my level of grief was very different, because obviously it's my dad, it's your superhero. So whenever that happens, I think the type of grief definitely does feel different. And it's any of your parents, when it's mom or dad, I think if you're really close with them, if you have that bond with them, it definitely feels different, and it hurts differently. And I think for me, my grief came very different, because, like I said earlier, I was in fix it mode, I was in work on it mode, and help everybody, and make the calls, and make sure this was set up, and make sure food was made, and I was trying to make sure everything was set up with the household first. And grief didn't hit me till pretty much the day of the funeral, and then weeks after, I was still feeling it, because at that moment is finally when I was able to kind of settle. And I think when I started sitting into, okay, what am I feeling, is when it all just kind of like waves hit me.
Right.
And I battled that the whole year, because my dad passed in 21. So he was like April of 21. So from then to where we're at now, it's been just a constant roller coaster of emotions, and I think grief, for me, it looked into the eyes of remembering. And I found this, before I say more into this, I found this picture of pretty much like the roadmap of what you're supposed to see of stages of grief. So for the audio listeners, there's a kind of an arrow kind of following through, and it shows denial, anger, depression, bargaining, and acceptance, which is the your 5 stages of grief. But then there's the road next to it, which is just kind of a whole jumble message. You hit all of them all at once, and it looks.
It looks how women shop in a
Yeah, it honestly does.
compared to how a guy shops. It's like I get in and I go past everything to straight to where I need to get my shit. But then the ladies, they get in and then they go left, right, front, center, diagonal, east, west.
Come back to the front, go back to the back, do one more loop around.
Yes, get another cart. Oh no.
But honestly speaking, though, when I saw that, it's funny is that I never remember going through with bargaining, and I don't know, because bargaining for me, I always think of, why didn't you take me? I would take me instead. And that is a form of bargaining, but I didn't know that.
Form of bargaining.
Yeah, I didn't know that bargaining could actually be also other verbiage, like even to the, and just for an example, because it's the first one I could think of to the head, is where it's like, well, why did this happen? Yeah. I even know that asking that question is a form of bargaining. I just thought it's you trying to make sense of it. And I didn't know that bargaining actually does that to you.
It's like you're bargaining for a different reality.
Yeah.
Why did this happen? What could I do? Is you like you're processing the thoughts of what can I do, or what I could have done to prevent the outcome.
I could have done this differently.
Yeah.
I could have did this when it happened, or I should have been on top of it. And I think that was where, I think once everything settled, I think that part hit me the hardest, because the denial part hit me almost immediately, because I got home and I felt like a dream. Like I thought I was going to get home from the hospital, and an hour or so later, my dad was just gonna walk right in, which would have been creepy if he did. It would have freaked me out.
That would have been some shit Dad would have done.
It really would have. My dad.
The humor that he had.
He just walk in, hey guys, what's going on? Like nothing happened. Like what?
At the funeral, when I'm looking at him, I'm like, you could wake up anytime,
motherfucker. Like, at any moment, you could have done this.
You're over here taking naps. Get up.
Like, I know you sleeping. I'm tickling your toes. He was ticklish. So, I always remember, just a quick segue, just to kind of pull off real quick. My dad had a bad habit of falling asleep, and always falling asleep with his feet up like this on the couch.
On the couch.
And I would have a bad habit of also walking by him when he would do it, and just also gently just go whoop on his foot, and he would kick back and go, motherfucker. And it was always the first word out of his mouth. It was never what the hell, or like, really, dude. It was always motherfucker.
You should have bought one of those French feather dusters.
Oh God, I want it. You know how many times I thought about it, and I said, man, he's gonna burn it. He's gonna burn me, or he's gonna throw me into that lake with the gator.
With the alligator.
So I was like, nah, it's a bad health move. I wouldn't do it.
Right.
But I would still tickle his feet. So go figure. I was still looking for that.
Well, we would pay to tickle his toes just one more time.
Just one more time.
One more dad.
But
yeah.
I don't know. The stages of grief always hit me, for me at least, hit very different. And I think it hit in different anger, like different roads, where I see like how people say, oh, you hit denial, you go into anger, you hit depression, then you start to bargain, and then you just accept everything that has happened. And I went through the depression, but I think I went denial, depression, bargain, then I got angry, and then I finally just said, okay, I gotta accept what it is, because at this point, even though I knew what happened, it was the allowing myself to just go, okay, this has happened now. What can I learn from it?
Right.
And I think that was the hardest part, because then it's like, man, I have to learn from my dad's death. And I think a lot of people, that's a struggle to sit there and look at and think of.
I am I'm in high gratitude to say that my dad is 84 fucking years old. And I get to see him. And even when he messes up, and those times when you're angry at him because he should know better, And it's like, why would you do that? Why would you even think that was a good idea? It's just like, I got to see him. I got
Yep.
to hold him. I got to shake his hand. I got to bicker with him because and I hope he lives to 120. But like when he's gone,
He'll
I
still
would.
be partying and drinking whiskey and
Yeah,
shit. You know that.
dude, he's doing that this year. There's no way that he's not gonna be doing it. They probably not throw a party like they used to because they are not about.
Oh, those
that
parties were lit.
anymore. Yeah, like mom had a birthday party for her 64th birthday, and she maybe had 40, 50 people, I think, compared
Wow.
to the 100 to 250 like we've had in the past.
God.
Obnoxious. But thanks for everyone who came. I guess.
We could barely recognize faces after a while. Like, who are you?
Right. Yeah. It's just like, oh, okay. Like, you show up once a year. Cool. But it's just like, I like how it's gone from like these wild parties to just like these controlled soirees. I love it.
Yeah.
And my dad, on the other hand, he's just like, I will make some ribs and you cook up some burgers and we'll watch soccer and say fuck Trump all day. and we'll watch CNN and end the night with some Rachel Maddow, and that's his form of a good birthday. And I'm like,
wow.
News and soccer and food. Cool. I'll bring the whiskey and we'll we'll make it interesting.
We'll make it more fun.
Yeah. And I would like as I said, he's 84 years old, man. If he would live to 104, we will be even when Trump is long gone, we'll be cursing Trump. Remember Trump back 20 years ago? On his deathbed, he'll be cursing them.
He probably would. My dad was kind of on his deathbed talking shit about Trump too, so I can't even. And anyone who knows my dad, who followed him on social media, he had a lot to say about Trump.
Yeah, always. And it was, oh my god, even to today, he's not even,
to this day, I miss arguing with him. You know how bad it was. I used to go to work and I would come home when I was working when we used to work together. Yeah. I used to come home for lunch, and I would come home because I saw his post on Facebook already. So I'll come home and go, Pop, did you really have to drop that?
Yeah.
And then, did you really have to go? He's like, dude, it's my social media. I do what I want.
Exactly.
If someone got something to say, I'm like, oh, okay.
Oh yeah. You swear he was Republican the way he explained it, the way he defended himself. Don't tread on me. He
defended like a Republican, but was a pure Democratic.
Me, I was on the other side of that. I'm still on the other side of that, where I prime myself for the conversation to be had. So I know that there's going to be a conversation because Trump was indicted and then indicted again, and something else happened, and then he's probably going to be indicted again and again because he has 2 more coming his way. And I'm like, great, what else is there? But I try to get the facts and then process it so I'm not getting too emotional, and I get like my information is flawed, but I know it's going to be about an hour conversation. So and I love it. I'll say a comment or two or just mention the name. It's like Voldemort at this point. It's just like, what? And I'll put the phone on speaker and I'll just lay it down. And every few minutes I'll go, yeah, oh wow. And he's just going. He's just going.
I can see him. I can hear him just going off already.
With his heavy Trinidad accent, talking about Trinidad politics, and then some for fucking reason we're talking about Ronald Reagan and trickle down economics, and then back to Trump, and then what is blasted George Bush and all type of shit. Damn, man, I gotta call him. I called him like a day ago. I gotta call him. Maybe not tonight, but when I have energy.
But
yes,
what's your idea of grief though? Kind of know we kind of segued all around.
No, you're fine. I was actually going to ask you a few other questions, but I'll just incorporate it to your
yeah.
So my interpretation of grief is how it depends, really, because it depends on the nature of the problem. It depends on the severity of the problem. And it also depends on your knowledge of the problem as well. Because if you are informed ahead of time that something may happen, you are then primed for it because it's almost inevitable. It may or may not
Yeah.
happen. That's where the stress comes into play. But if you know, like, hey, this is going to happen this way, and there's nothing you can do about it, it's just waiting. You're kind of in purgatory until it happens. Then there's nothing you can do but process it. Because when it does finalize, there's nothing you can do. But there's also, you've already gone through the ringer in the sense of your depression and your acceptance, your anger, your bargaining.
Yeah.
In any form, any stage. But in a sense of like death, like if you see somebody struggling for years with cancer or this or a terminal illness or however, and they pass away, it's almost like you could say they finally passed away. I don't want to rub anybody wrong. Don't take that with any emotion. Just listen to what I said. They finally passed away. Why? Because you were stricken with grief throughout their entire process of their illness, knowing that this is one terminal. That's it.
That's actually that's deep because I've never looked at it in that aspect. Keep going.
So you know it's coming. You just don't know when. But you're able to process it every day to the point that over time you kind of just want it to happen. And it sounds selfish, but then when you talk about it, it's also uplifting to think that you don't want somebody to suffer anymore. I choose death because grief is one of the biggest grievances. It is the death of a loved one. So, like, when you finally see that they have passed on, it's bittersweet because they're left us. They're no longer with us, but they're no longer struggling, and they're no longer in pain or in their own grief, because as you're processing, hey, I'm about to lose a loved one, they're processing, hey, I'm about to lose my life.
Yeah.
When is that going to happen? And they're going through their stages of, I've accepted this. When is it going to happen? And then they get anger. Can I just die already? Can it just?
And that's the weirdest part of it all. Like when you start really thinking about like that part of it is how many times you sit there and go, and as a human, just sit there and go, oh God, like I'm gonna die like now kind of thing. And you're sitting there just processing that, and it's like, no, I'm not. It's like, when is it gonna happen? I could I could see that in that aspect, in that light.
And then you also have it where the acceptance part of it, in the sense of, I'm happy that I'm going to die because I will no longer be in pain. I won't have to deal with this shit anymore. I'll just be at peace. Depending on what you believe in, if you're Muslim, if you're Catholic, if you're this, that, whatever religion you want to pick. Or if you're agnostic, or what's it called? Agnostic, or when you don't believe in God. Atheist. There you go. Lost train of thought for a second. So, like, even then, it's just pure peace. There is no afterlife. There is no end or beginning of this and that and the other. It's just gone. You're just gone. And it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Me, I'm a science buff. And one of the first rules that you learn in science is that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It's transferred. So how come your soul is an energy? You need energy to move through your life. Why isn't your life energy? What concept that makes you think that your soul isn't just pure energy? So you're moving on. Moving on to where? Is it another body? Is it another mind? Yeah, you could have surgery and take parts out of you. You could never have surgery to take your soul out of you and put it into another vessel, another body. Does God have that type of control? Who knows? Anyway, then there's.
But it's true though, because it's funny because it's actually a perfect conversation for that, because you can add a new heart, you can add a kidney, you can remove a kidney, you can lose a liver, you can add a liver, but it's always the soul that we talk about, which is, I don't know, I always say, like, is the brain the soul? Because if I move my brain and put it in a different body, what does that do? Does my brain go there? Does my mind go into that, or is it vice versa?
Consciousness, everything.
Yeah.
And
so
when you see a loved one in the casket and you're like, they look different, it's because they are. At that point, they're just a boss or a base, however you want to pronounce it. but they were what held the flowers that is our soul, the personality, your happiness, your attitude. Yeah, like the way your facial expressions, the way that you enunciated words, the way you didn't enunciate words, you spoke in ebonics, if you really, however you wanted to do.
Yeah, whatever your niche was, that is this vessel, this
Yeah,
vase, is what's holding it.
exactly. When I pass away, it'll be like I'm no longer white boy Rob. I'm not. I'm no longer the guy that say whatever the fuck he wants and smile about it. I am laying there with my eternal nap, and I love naps, but not that long. But as I was moving forward, there's also the flip side to what I'm saying. And when it comes to grief and the process of grief, when it's a sudden grievance, somebody died in a car crash,
Yeah.
boom, and you just spoke to them. That can happen to us
Yep.
now.
Yep.
God forbid. Tomorrow, Angie and I have errands. Boom. You got to go to work. Boom. Anything can happen. God forbid.
Yeah.
But it's the shell shock of that would you process that differently. I just spoke to him. We just recorded. I was just with her.
I just had a whole conversation. I was just hanging out with them.
Exactly. I just kissed my wife goodbye and I went to work. And now you're telling me that she's never coming home again? Like that shit. That's like, whoa. You process grief and you may never process it fully because of how sudden and impactful it could be.
Yeah.
I don't put shit out there. I lost my sister-in-law years ago. How old was I? It was about 11, 12 years ago, actually. My niece was 16. She's damn
Wow.
near 18 now. Yeah, and she was 6. She's damn near 18 now. But it was sudden, very sudden. Like they went to a party. She came in. She went in the room. Next morning, she was dead.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was like, I was laying there watching TV and my door was wide open and I heard nothing. No one heard a single fucking thing. Next thing you know, the house is turned upside down. There's EMTs and paramedics all over the place trying to save this woman's life. The next morning, she was dead. It was the most surreal and shell-shocking thing that I've ever been through. And it actually, it to this day, it shakes our family. Because
yeah, I imagine.
No matter how raunchy she was, how crazy Puerto Rican, New York, and that New Yorican, yeah, that's the word for it. That New Yorican badass attitude. I don't give a F. I don't give a fuck. At all times, she was a sweetheart, and she loved her daughter to death, and she loved her, I would say, fiance, because they weren't married. But she loved her fiance to death, my brother, to the end of time and back. But I saw and I felt that sudden grief. I saw it in my brother, who was always very stoic, and I saw him turn into a mindless baby because he couldn't process it. He was in utter shock. I thought I was going to lose my brother. I thought he was going to commit suicide because to this day he's in a depression.
That's crazy. Didn't even hear.
He's been able to, move on and do things and make a life for himself and have more kids, and he has a beautiful little family, But that don't leave.
No, yeah, and I remember when my grandmother passed away versus when my grandfather passed away.
Right.
My grandmother on my mom's side and my grandfather for my dad's side.
Right.
My grandfather was sick. He was, fighting. It was emphysema and he had COPD, and yeah, he had a lot of stuff going on. He was a smoker. He was a known smoker. Battled it, and I think if I'm correct, 3 years in a row they told him he wasn't gonna make that year, and he finally got it right the third year. But when you say the same thing every year,
finally got it right the third time's a charm.
Yeah, you're eventually gonna get it right if you keep saying it. But but then when my grandmother passed, it was I remember we went to sleep, and though she was acting weird, we were talking to her. She was talking to us. Right. And then I went to sleep and woke up the next morning and found her the way I found her. So it's It's different. It was different because we knew my grandfather was sick and was battling, and
Yes.
you know, I've actually recently found pictures of him, and it was a good way to remember him. But
Yeah.
I saw all his pictures from like just before he got really sick to when he was really sick,
Right.
and you know, you could see like he was withering through, and it was like, man,
Mm.
like when he passed, it hurt because
Yeah.
he was, you know, a huge focal point for us, but you know, at the same time, we went through the acceptance of this is gonna happen,
Yeah.
and I just want to be here for him.
You had
You
that time
know,
to.
yeah. You know, when my grandmother passed, it was like, no, like
Yep.
this. I was just having conversation with her, like this is crazy. You're like, what are we going? What are we really doing?
Yeah.
You know, and then, you know, same thing for my dad. It was so sudden. It was just like, wait, we were just celebrating New Year's. What's going on here?
He just taught me how to cook rice.
Yeah.
I still have those messages. I refuse to delete them.
I have his number. I still refuse to delete it.
Nah, he's always gonna be in my phone.
The only way I'm getting rid of it is if the phone, when I transfer it and get a new phone, it deletes it on accident. The only way that'll happen.
When I transfer the iPhone, that happens. So I gotta actually check I gotta check my shit. But when you mentioned, you know, checking, you know, the photographs of your grandfather, I was watching I love like murder mysteries and like unsolved mysteries and stuff like that. Netflix, everything's on Netflix, but I
literally everything and nothing.
Yeah, everything and nothing at the same time. I don't want to watch Selling Sunset. Like, get it off of my TV. It's nothing, but it's everything. It's like Angie and I could sit there and just watch, and then I remember watching one in particular with this girl who got ran over by a train, and she was on her way. They ruled it as a suicide, and the family was just grief stricken and this, that, and the other. But the mother said you could look at as many photos as you want of your loved one, but the second you watch a video of them is what hits the most, because they come back alive.
Yeah.
You see their emotions, you see their happiness or their anger, or
their laughter, or their yelling.
The way they used to laugh. You could look at a photo and say, Robbie and Felix, look at that. Like, you take a snapshot right now and be like, Robbie and Felix, how they used to talk and crack jokes and smile and this and that. But then you watch a video of Rated F,
and you hear
the way that Felix laughs compared to Robbie, or how Robbie speaks compared to Felix, or just the way that you interpret information differently. And that's what awakens your soul and understand like who that person really was. And I was like, damn. So, I mean, for years, I've always done that. I'll take photos of the dogs and this idea, but every now and then I'll take a video and be like, look at Whiskey and how he was. Yeah, look at Bruce and how he was. Look at Angie and how she is. Like, you internalize them because we have the technology to.
You know, it's funny that you say that, because my father-in-law just told me this the other day, because I was having dinner with him, and he said, take pictures, take videos, take everything you can, cherish those. He says, because, you know, when they're gone, it's that little bit that keeps them alive.
Yeah. And,
you know, obviously, like I said earlier, like my mother-in-law passed, and we were celebrating her birthday this past week, and we were watching videos and hearing her laugh, or seeing a picture and then talking about memories, and you know, and we're like, oh my god, like so many moments and stuff. And you know, it's like, wow, like we have that technology to sit there and say, wow, I could see my loved one even though they're not here. I can hear them even though they're not here.
Exactly. Imagine how, process that for a second. That someone who isn't with us anymore, you can go back and watch their life if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Because you have pictures of them from a baby to elementary school, so on and so forth, through different stages of their life, even if it's 5-year increments, 10-year increments, however it be. And you'd be like, wow, I could relive this person's life. Look at their, like, there was a picture that I saw of you and her, and you're, you're flicking
Oh,
the bird. And I
yeah.
was just like,
It's one of my favorite pictures with her too.
you know, and you're like, that is eternalized because it comes with a memory. But imagine if you took a video, or if you already have a video of the moment, even a 10-second, 10-minute moment like that, etched in stone. Like, you can never get rid of it unless you
Yeah.
wrap it on. But I lost a few pictures of my sister-in-law, unfortunately, because it was on that. You remember when they made iPods?
Oh God, yeah.
And the iPod.
You mean I couldn't make a call, but I can still listen to my music?
Yeah. So I tried to salvage as many photos from that thing as I could, but it just, unfortunately, it blacked out, and I had that thing for damn near a decade. But
yeah, I think I had mine for a grip too. I had that and the iTouch and the Nanos and
oh God, the Nano. It was so useless. I hated the Nano.
it was useless, but it was useful at that time. It was like a cheaper end. Like, I didn't want to get the brick, but I wanted just enough so I can put it in my pocket and have the wire go through the back of my shirt.
Right. I used to download music for free, and it's just like, oh yeah, but then
I
iTunes to get on your ass.
You got a virus on your computer, but you got a bunch of new songs.
Yeah, it was worth it. Clean that bitch right out, man. Used to spend more on malware than I used to spend on fucking music. I got every movie. You got every virus too. You just create STDs over here. You got new 50 Cent album.
God.
50 stages of herpes on your fucking computer. Hope you like that album for free. You could have went to Target and bought that shit for $12. What is it worth? What was it really worth?
It was worth it all.
Now we can.
It's like the Thanos line. What did you risk? I risked it all.
The Thanos and Gamora. What did it cost you? Everything. It cost nothing, but everything at the same time.
God,
oh, Lord, it was always good to have a friend that knew how to fix computers.
Oh yeah.
It was like my hard drive. What's wrong with it? It's a whore, and I need a new one. Salvage the good memory, i.e., all the shit that I downloaded.
Get out. God.
Remember LimeWire?
Oh God, FrostWire and LimeWire. Remember both.
Yes. There should be medications for that shit.
they needed their own like shots to sit there and just shoot up the computer. I used to hate when I downloaded a song and you used to hear the Bill Clinton, I did not sleep with that woman, but I did save $10 a month. But I'm like, I wanted to listen to freaking Lil Jon.
Where's my Like a Pimp from David Banner? Not here, motherfucker. You downloaded the wrong file.
Got the wrong one. Used to hate it. It's like there's 4 of them. He's like, there was 4 of them. They're all next to each other. Like, I'll choose this one, and this was the corrupted one. So you had to go to this one, corrupted one. You go to this one. Like, dang, I should have just hit this one. I almost did too.
It was Russian roulette.
100%.
Oh hell.
So I do want to ask one of the questions before we get too far off. You know, at this point,
too far off news. That's
too far news. Oh God. So with the idea of grief, and we kind of touched a little bit on it, but do you think that religion or culture even plays a factor in grief?
Yes.
I'll let you start this one off.
Oh, thank you. I like that word. Let's
surrender it.
I surrender to you with my head. Religion, yes, because the processing of what the grief is, it depends on your traditions and your rituals and the way your family and friends would perceive you as a person. Especially a lot of people keep themselves in a bubble. Like if you're Jewish, you can't hang out with Jewish people. If you're a Christian, you hang out with Christian people. But there's other and it's like a safe haven in a sense because you're with like-minded people. I'm not necessarily like that at all because
No,
I
you?
like to be, huh?
You really? Never.
Yeah, I don't I don't like people, but I don't I if I know somebody, I really don't like for them to be exactly like me or the same process of thoughts that I have. Like it gets boring. So it's like
Yeah.
that's why
You always agree with me.
Huh?
It's like you always agree with me. Shut up.
Yeah, exactly.
Kiss ass.
It's like having an entourage and they're banking on you to take care of them. It's just like, yeah, sure, okay, that's a great idea. Why don't you drop off that crib? Why did you take it to dinner? Like, shut up. Like that's what I think. Like we ping off each other. We have a good contrast. It creates chemistry because we're not always in the same ship. But however,
We're riding the same wave, but not on the same boat.
Exactly, we're in the same ocean. We ain't in the boat. Yeah, but it's good to have that because you end up understanding cultures differently. And one that I know in particular is a Korean culture because when somebody grieves, the louder and more intense that you grieve, it shows how much you cared for that person. So it's like if you're against the walls for this person who's gone now, it's like, wow, they really love them, they really knew them. And you take it with a grain of salt because somebody in American culture would be like, oh, they're so dramatic.
Yeah, I was gonna. It's funny as you saying it in my head. I'm like, I would just say that.
Yeah, and the person that's in the corner is like in that culture, they're like, wow, they really didn't give a shit. But in our society, it's like, wow, he is so good. He's speechless. She can't even process what's going on. She's quiet.
Yeah.
Keep an eye out for her because she needs us the most, or he needs us the most.
Yeah, because in our culture, in our culture, we've noticed, and I don't know if Korean have the same culture as far as like suicide and all that, but you see, I hate you. But if you sit there and really see it, like in our culture, we think quiet is eventually they're gonna hurt themselves, so we need to go talk to them, and
that's like quiet is dangerous. Quiet is always dangerous because the quiet ones are the ones that shoot up the schools or shoot themselves or hurt something. They hurt something or someone.
Yep.
And the more quiet that you are, especially in American culture, is when people come to you and be like, why are you so quiet?
Yeah.
They'd be like,
everyone's always questioning, why are you so quiet? What's wrong with you?
I get that a lot now at work because when I transitioned to the back to the floor and taking care of patients, they were like, you're so quiet now. Are you okay? Like, you want to talk? Like, do you need to talk? Even a social worker comes up to me and she's like, Robbie, are you okay? You're not the same Robbie. I'm like, I am focusing because I have 3 days to figure this out before I'm on my own. So
seriously,
I'm quiet for a reason. But after I'm done, then I'll be fine. It does. The way I perceive it is that it does play a huge factor because you're looking at religion and how you are able to process and do and go through the steps of grief. But then you also look at your culture that shows you and it's a nature versus nurture situation. Yep. It has nurtured you on how to process it. In a sense, you're saying the same question. This is how to process it, but this is how to process it. In a sense of mind, body, and soul compared to ritualistic things and traditions, trinkets. How do you say ceremonies, things of sort. And it's like you kind of going with the emotions of what you're doing compared to going with the emotions of how you're doing it. If that makes any sense.
That makes some. At least to me, it makes some sense.
Right. How about you?
I honestly think definitely, like, I agree with you on this one, that religion and culture plays a huge factor because and mainly on the religion factor of it, I think for me, I think most cultures in a way we grieve and we celebrate life very similarly to an extent. Obviously, like, Mexico, they have the Day of the Dead where they literally take their bodies of their dead ones out, and they put those, the like the mantles and everything up. I forgot the name of it, but they put those up and they have the pictures, and
Right.
they have their whole like ritual for it.
A memorial.
And then and then
real life memorial.
yeah, and the movie Coco from Disney really they talk about it a lot, and they really show really well of like how that looks and stuff.
Right.
But then you look at like
Right.
a Muslim, like I remember when I was at work, when I used to work at Nike, and we had one of our employees had passed. He was an older gentleman, but he was and I remember when he passed, they made a big thing about don't send flowers, don't do this. It's not their religion, like they don't do that.
Right.
And we were like, oh, okay, like we wanted to like show at the end, like, and they understand that, but their religion doesn't do that. And I was like, oh, okay. And I learned something that day, and I respected that.
Yeah. Also, the what I love about the Muslim, and I think it's Indian as well. I have to ask my mom, but the 24-hour factor, the way they the way they take care of the body, the way they pray, and the way they take care of the loved one's soul to make sure and that they get to where they're supposed to be going. Dog just ran into the room. So
mine's laying right by my foot. So
yeah, so like how they prepare and their stages of grief, and how their culture and their religion are intertwined really, and it becomes that factor of grief and that factor of process that you take care of. I love that about them, because there's some situations where with loved ones that I've had here, 3 weeks later they're freaking getting cremated and shit. It's like, what? No, it was like, no, we got 24 hours. Cut the bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, we got to take care of this person and make sure that they know that we're honoring them and we're in aiding them where they cannot aid themselves.
Exactly.
And that's beautiful. I love that about the Muslim religion.
Yeah, I definitely gotta say, I know they get a lot of bad rap from the radical end of it, and just like any other religion that has the radical part of it, it does a bad rap. But they have a very beautiful way of how they celebrate, how they pray.
Right.
I definitely, I think it's very being so open to how everyone does their thing. Everyone prays very differently. It's awesome to kind of see that and see their way of grieving and their timeline that they give themselves, and then how they kind of go forward with it.
Exactly. It's beautiful.
Very beautiful. I think, and if anybody who's watching this has their input on if they think the same thing or if they don't, either way, love to hear what you guys say about that as well.
Yeah.
Robbie, do you have anything else for us tonight, man? Any
I know we jumped right into the topic. I'm gonna leave it at that because it's a very sensitive and interesting, very intellectual conversation. So I will save my rated F news for next time. I'm just gonna hold on for it. Yeah, I'm gonna keep it in my back pocket. It's a nice one, but yeah, that's all I gotta say. I'm good.
Okay. All right, well, guys, thank you guys for everyone who tuned in. Again, for anybody who hasn't already done it, if you definitely loved what we talked about today, go ahead and like and subscribe to the channel. And then also make sure you get notified. You hit the bell every time we drop our videos. You get notified when it happens. For our audio listeners, again, just make sure you guys are dropping a rating. Let us know how you guys think of the show. 5 stars, 4 stars, 3 stars, whatever it is. Just let us know. Say it from the chest, and it'll make us cry a little bit, but we'll eventually just get over it.
And if
we'll surrender to this.
If it's a 4-star or less, leave a comment and let us know what we're doing wrong or what we could do better. We're always evolving, man. We were talking about this earlier. We've been doing this close to 3 years, if not more. And when we started evolving and really taking this channel as seriously as we could, is when we've seen the greatest growth of it. And we literally cannot do that without you guys, because we serve you. you know. So it's a situation where if you're not talking to us, we don't really know what to do. So we're just talking to ourselves. You gotta let us know. Drop a comment, even if it's the nastiest thing that you've ever said to somebody. We can take it. We say disgusting things to each other. And
Off camera. It's just
15 years. So it's like we're good. If it's the kindest thing that you've ever said to somebody, we would love to hear it. But the communication is key, man, and that's how we grow, and that's how we're going to be. We're not going anywhere. We're trying to make this definitely a moneymaker and quit our jobs and serve you guys for all eternity.
All right, guys. Well, until next time, we'll talk a little bit more.
All right, peace out.